First contact and confusion. The Hegemony's Seventh Fleet hung in the darkness of space, like a constellation of artificial stars, their crystalline hulls refracting the light of distant suns. Admiral Vixarin stood on the command deck of the flagship Eternal Dominance, her forearms clasped behind her back as she studied the tactical display with growing irritation. "Confirm scan results," she ordered, her inner eyelids flickering rapidly, a sign of agitation her subordinates knew well. "Confirmed, Admiral," the sensor officer reported. 5 vessels of unknown configuration, approaching from heading 227 Mark 43. Their drive signatures don't match any known species in our database. Vixarin's irritation deepened. The galactic hegemony had ruled these sectors for 10,000 cycles. Any new spacefaring race should have been detected and subjugated long before they developed interstellar capabilities. Yet here they were, deep in hegemony space, their very presence an affront to proper order. "Open communications," she commanded. "Let's remind these primitives whose territory they've wandered into." The communications officer complied, and the main view screen flickered to life. Vixarin had expected to see aliens cowering in fear, or perhaps attempting to maintain dignity in the face of overwhelming superiority. Instead, she found herself staring at a human woman in a captain's uniform, feet propped up on her console, eating what appeared to be a sandwich. "Oh, hey there," the human captain said cheerfully, taking another bite. "Sorry about the lunch break. You caught us right in the middle of shift change. I'm Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Expeditionary Force. That's a gorgeous fleet you've got. The crystalline construction is absolutely fascinating. Mind if we take some pictures?" Vixarin's facial tentacles writhed in confusion. This was not how first contact scenarios were supposed to play out. "You stand in the presence of the Seventh Fleet of the Galactic Hegemony," she declared, her voice resonating with carefully practiced authority. "Your vessels have entered our sovereign territory without permission. Submit to inspection and prepare to be escorted to the nearest processing station for species evaluation and classification." Captain Chen's eyes lit up with interest. "Species evaluation. That sounds fun. We love meeting new people. Though I should mention we're actually here by invitation. The Ardeni gave us navigation rights through this sector about 6 months ago." "The Ardeni are a subjugated protectorate," Vixarin snapped. "They have no authority to grant passage rights." "Really? That's not what their new government says," Chen replied, finishing her sandwich and brushing crumbs from her uniform. "You might want to update your diplomatic channels. Things have been changing pretty quickly out here on the rim." Vixarin felt her grip on the situation slipping. The Ardeni were one of the most thoroughly dominated species in the sector. The idea that they had established an independent government was absurd. Yet the humans' casual certainty was unsettling. "Your ignorance of galactic law is no excuse," Vixarin declared. "You will submit to inspection. Or—" "Oh, sorry to interrupt," Chen cut in, "but one of our science officers is absolutely geeking out over your crystal tech. Would you mind if we sent over a few sensor drones for a closer look? We're trying to improve our materials science division, and your ships are just gorgeous." Vixarin's bridge crew exchanged bewildered looks. No species had ever reacted to the Seventh Fleet with scientific curiosity. Fear, yes. Awe, certainly. But this casual interest, as if the most powerful battle fleet in the sector was some kind of traveling exhibition. "Your insolence will not be tolerated," Vixarin growled. "We are the hegemony. We have ruled the stars since before your species learned to make fire. Our technology is beyond your comprehension." "Oh, totally," Chen agreed enthusiastically. "That's why we're so excited to study it. You know what they say, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic until you figure out how it works. Speaking of which, we're picking up some unusual quantum fluctuations from your primary drive systems. Have you guys solved the cascade alignment problem with crystal matrices? We've been working on something similar back home." Vixarin felt a chill run through her body. The cascade alignment problem was a closely guarded secret of hegemony engineering. How could these primitives possibly know about it? "You will cease scanning our vessels immediately," she ordered. "This is your final warning. Submit to inspection or face the consequences." Chen sighed, finally sitting up properly in her chair. "Look, I'm trying to be friendly here, but if you're going to be all formal about it..." She pressed a few buttons on her console, and a series of documents appeared on the screen. "Here are our diplomatic credentials, navigation rights from 3 separate sector authorities, and our research permits. We're happy to submit to inspection, but it'll have to be conducted under Galactic Convention protocols, since we're registered as an independent research fleet. Article 7. Section 12 should cover all the relevant procedures." Vixarin stared at the documents in disbelief. They appeared completely legitimate, bearing the quantum signatures of multiple recognized authorities. But that was impossible. No new species had ever navigated hegemony bureaucracy so thoroughly before first contact. "Admiral," her intelligence officer whispered urgently, "we're detecting unusual energy readings from the human vessels. They appear to be, well, we're not entirely sure what they're doing, but it's like nothing in our database." "Having trouble with your sensors?" Chen asked sympathetically. "Yeah, sorry about that. Our quantum shielding tends to play havoc with traditional scanning systems. We're still working out the bugs. Tell you what, why don't we power everything down to baseline and start over? Maybe exchange some cultural information first. I'd love to learn more about your society's development of crystalline technology." Vixarin felt her authority eroding with every word from the human captain. These primitives weren't just unafraid. They were acting like equals, or worse, like teachers humoring an inexperienced student. It was infuriating, and yet, there was something about their confidence that gave her pause. "You will remain in position while we verify your credentials," she finally declared, trying to maintain some semblance of control over the situation. "Of course," Chen agreed brightly. "Take all the time you need. Oh, and since we might be here a while, anyone interested in trading some technical data? We got some fascinating research on quantum entanglement we'd love to share. Your crystal tech could really help us refine our theories." As Vexarin cut the communication channel, she found herself facing an uncomfortable realization. For the first time in her career, she had no idea how to proceed. These humans weren't following any of the expected patterns. They showed no fear, no proper deference, and worst of all, they seemed to understand technologies they should have no knowledge of. "Admiral," her executive officer prompted carefully. "Your orders?" Vixarin stared at the 5 small human ships, so insignificant compared to her mighty fleet, yet somehow managing to project an aura of absolute confidence that shook her to her core. "Contact Central Command," she said finally. Tell them we may have a situation. The ancient vessel." 3 days into the diplomatic standoff, Admiral Vixarin received the transmission that would shatter her understanding of galactic power dynamics. The humans had requested permission to bring in what they called a research vessel to help facilitate technical discussions. Vixarin had expected another of their small ships. What emerged from hyperspace instead stopped every conversation on the bridge. By the first light, her weapons officer whispered, all 4 hands trembling as they gripped the console. The vessel that appeared dwarfed even the eternal dominance. It was ancient, impossibly ancient, its hull a patchwork of repairs and modifications that spoke of centuries of careful restoration. But there was no mistaking its origin. Every officer on the bridge recognized the distinctive architecture, the sweeping lines and impossible geometries that had haunted hegemony nightmares for generations. It was a precursor warship, a relic of the species that had vanished from the galaxy 50,000 years ago, leaving behind only fragments of their incomprehensible technology and stern warnings about forces beyond the rim. "Hiya. Hope we didn't startle anyone." Captain Chen's voice came through cheerfully. "Everyone, meet the second chance. She's a bit of a fixer-upper, but we've grown pretty fond of her." Vixarin struggled to find her voice. That vessel is forbidden technology. The precursor sites are forbidden. How dare you desecrate? Oh, we didn't take her from a site, Chen interrupted. Found her floating in deep space, actually. Poor girl had been drifting for millennia. Took us 15 years just to figure out how to power her up without blowing a hole in space-time. Want to come aboard? Our restoration team loves giving tours. The casualness with which the humans discussed their possession of a precursor warship was perhaps even more shocking than the vessel itself. The hegemony had built their entire civilization around studying and reverse engineering fragments of precursor technology. The idea that these newcomers had not only found an intact ship, but restored it to functioning condition was impossible, Vixarin declared. Your species couldn't possibly understand precursor systems. Our greatest minds have spent thousands of cycles merely trying to decode their basic principles. Yeah, we noticed you guys seem to treat their tech like it's some kind of mystical artifact, Chen replied. That's actually a pretty common problem we've encountered. Everyone's so convinced the precursors were these godlike beings that they're afraid to really dig into how their technology works. We just approached it like any other engineering challenge. Admiral, her science officer cut in urgently. The human vessel is, well, it appears to be repairing itself. We're detecting molecular reconstruction at the quantum level. Chen beamed. Good eye. The self-repair systems were one of the first things we got working. Turns out the precursors built everything with a sort of quantum redundancy. Every component contains the information needed to rebuild itself. Once we cracked that principle, everything else started falling into place. Vixarin watched in horrified fascination as sections of the ancient hull shifted and flowed, damaged areas knitting themselves back together like living tissue. This was beyond forbidden technology. This was something out of legend. Your claims are outrageous, she managed finally. If you truly understood precursor technology, you would be the most powerful force in the galaxy. Oh, we don't want to be the most powerful anything, Chen said with a dismissive wave. That's way too much responsibility. We just want to learn and explore. Speaking of which, our engineering team has been studying your crystal tech, and we think we've figured out how to solve that cascade alignment problem you're having. Want to see our calculations? Before Vixarin could respond, her tactical officer called out in alarm. Admiral, we're detecting multiple hyperspace signatures. More human vessels incoming. One by one, they emerged from hyperspace, a dozen ships of various sizes, each one clearly incorporating precursor technology to some degree. Some were purely human in construction, but built using precursor principles. Others were restored precursor vessels like the Second Chance. All of them hummed with power that made Vixarin's sensors scream in protest. Sorry for the crowd, Chen said. Word got out that we'd made first contact, and everyone wanted to come say hi. That's Dr. Patel's research group from the Quantum Archaeology Institute, and I think I see Professor Wang's Xenotechnology team. Oh, and that's the New Horizons. They've been exploring out past the rim. Hey Sarah, how was the trip? Vixarin watched in mounting disbelief as the humans chatted casually among themselves, sharing sensor data and comparing notes on their various projects. They treated universe-shattering technological discoveries like everyday shop talk, discussing principles that the hegemony's best scientists had barely begun to grasp. I don't understand, she said finally. If you have this level of technology, why announce yourselves with such a small fleet? Why not simply demonstrate your power from the beginning? Chen looked genuinely puzzled. Why would we do that? We're here to learn and make friends, not show off. Besides, starting with the big ships tends to make people nervous. We figured a smaller expedition would be less intimidating. She paused, then added apologetically, though I guess that didn't work out quite like we planned. Sorry about all this. We really didn't mean to overwhelm anyone. As Vixarin struggled to process this response, her intelligence officer approached with a trembling report. Admiral, we've been analyzing their communications. They're sharing everything. Technical data, research notes, theories about precursor technology. They're just giving it away to anyone who asks. Of course we are, Chen said, overhearing. That's how science works. Everyone shares their findings. Everyone benefits. She brightened. Hey, would your science teams like to join our next research conference? We're hosting it on the second chance next month. There's going to be a fascinating presentation on quantum archaeology techniques. Vixarin stared at the human captain, finally understanding what she was dealing with. These weren't conquerors or warriors. They were something far more dangerous. They were explorers and teachers, utterly unburdened by the fears and preconceptions that had held back other species for millennia. And they were about to turn everything the hegemony knew about the galaxy upside down. Hidden powers awakened. The Hegemony Central Command's response arrived exactly as Captain Chen had predicted. 3 battle fleets. She noted, watching the massive armada emerge from hyperspace. They're taking this better than I expected. Last time we did this, the Galactic Empire sent 5. Admiral Vixarin had spent the past week in a state of perpetual astonishment as she watched the humans casually rewrite everything she thought she knew about precursor technology. Now, as her superiors arrived with enough firepower to reduce a solar system to atoms, she found herself more concerned for the hegemony than for the humans. The High Council demands your immediate surrender and the transfer of all precursor vessels to hegemony control, the newly arrived Grand Admiral declared, his image dominating the communication screen. Yeah, that's not going to work for us, Chen replied, still reviewing sensor data on her tablet. The ships are sentient, you see. Can't really transfer them anywhere they don't want to go. The Grand Admiral's facial tentacles writhed in rage. Sentient? You dare mock us with such absurd claims. Oh, right. Sorry, we probably should have mentioned that earlier. Chen looked up, genuinely apologetic. Hey, second chance. Want to say hello? The massive precursor vessel shimmered, its quantum field suddenly alive with patterns of light that formed themselves into a holographic face larger than most ships. The expression it wore was distinctly amused. Greetings, hegemony leadership, the ship's consciousness said, its voice resonating through space itself. I apologize for not introducing myself sooner. My human friends thought it might be overwhelming during initial contact. The Grand Admiral's image flickered as he physically staggered backward. This is impossible. The precursors never created true I. Not I, Chen corrected. The precursors discovered that consciousness itself is a quantum phenomenon. Their ships weren't built with artificial intelligence. They were grown with actual intelligence. We just had to figure out how to wake them up. Vixarin watched as the Grand Admiral's face cycled through expressions of shock, fear, and outrage. If what you say is true, this technology must be controlled. The danger off. Sorry to interrupt. A new voice cut in, and another holographic face appeared, this one projecting from a smaller vessel. But I think there's been a misunderstanding about the relationship here. I'm Dr. Lakshmi Patil of the Quantum Pioneer, and we're not controlling anything. We're partners with these vessels, learning from each other. The Hegemony Fleet's sensors suddenly screamed warnings as the precursor vessels began to power up, not in aggression, but simply revealing the true scope of their capabilities. Energy readings went off the scale as quantum fields interacted in ways that shouldn't have been possible. Perhaps a demonstration would help clarify things, the second chance suggested, its holographic face showing what could only be described as a mischievous grin. Before the hegemony commanders could respond, reality itself seemed to hiccup. Every ship in the combined hegemony fleet found itself instantly transported 5 light-years from its previous position. Local space-time manipulation, Chen explained casually. The precursors used it for parking in tight spots. Took us ages to figure out the interface. Turns out you have to ask nicely. The Grand Admiral's image returned, his composure completely shattered. You cannot. This power isn't meant to be a power at all, Chen interrupted firmly, her casual tone finally giving way to something more serious. That's what we've been trying to tell you. The precursors didn't build weapons. They built tools for exploration and understanding. Everyone's been so focused on their military potential that they missed the actual point. The second chance's holographic face nodded. My original creators would be deeply disappointed to see how their legacy has been misinterpreted. They didn't vanish or go extinct. They evolved beyond the need for physical form. The warnings they left weren't about external threats, but about the dangers of pursuing power instead of understanding. Which is why, Chen continued, we're offering to share everything we've learned. No conditions, no demands for control or submission, just open exchange of knowledge. Vixarin found herself stepping forward. But why? With this technology, you could dominate the galaxy. Why simply give it away? Because that's not who we are. A new voice joined in as another human vessel moved forward. This one was smaller, clearly of human construction, but incorporating precursor principles. Its captain, an elderly man with laugh lines around his eyes, appeared on screen. I'm Professor James Wong. He introduced himself. I was part of the original team that found the second chance. Want to know our first reaction when we realized what we discovered? We threw a party. Not because of the power it represented, but because of all the questions it could help us answer. You see, Chen picked up the thread. Humans have always been driven by curiosity more than conquest. Give us a mystery, and we'll work ourselves to exhaustion trying to solve it. Show us something impossible, and we'll figure out how to make it work. But the real joy, that comes from sharing what we learn. The hegemony commanders watched in stunned silence as the humans began transmitting data, research papers, technical specifications, theoretical frameworks that unified quantum mechanics with consciousness itself. It was everything they had learned about precursor technology, freely given. We understand this is a lot to process, the second chance said gently. My human friends had a similar reaction when they first understood what they'd discovered, but they adapted remarkably quickly once they stopped trying to control everything and started trying to understand it instead. The Grand Admiral's image had been silent for several minutes, clearly struggling to process the situation. Finally, he asked in a small voice, "And if we refuse your offer? If we choose to fight?" Chen smiled sadly. "Then we'll defend ourselves. Transport your fleets back to your homeworld, and wait until you're ready to talk again. We're very patient, and very stubborn." As if to emphasize the point, reality hiccuped again, and the hegemony fleets found themselves back in their original positions. "Now then," Chen said brightly, her casual tone returning, "who'd like to attend our first seminar on quantum consciousness integration? The second chance makes amazing teaching assistants, and we've got great coffee." Tables turned. 3 months after what historians would later call the Awakening, the galactic hegemony found itself in unprecedented chaos. Not from war or conflict, but from an explosion of knowledge that threatened to upend 10,000 years of established order. Admiral Vixarin stood in the Great Hall of the Hegemony Council, watching as her former superiors struggled to maintain their composure. The humans had been invited to present their findings to the full council, a historically unprecedented event, and they had approached it with their usual mix of enthusiasm and casual disregard for protocol. So basically, Dr. Patel was saying as she floated cross-legged above the speaking platform, a casual demonstration of personal quantum field manipulation that had half the council trying not to stare. We've been going about space travel all wrong. The precursors discovered that consciousness itself is the key to manipulating quantum reality. Their technology wasn't built on engineering principles as we understand them, but on the interaction between mind and matter. Preposterous, Council Elder Vix declared, though his tentacles trembled. You expect us to believe that mere thought can control the fundamental forces of the universe? Well, yeah, Captain Chen chimed in from where she was sharing snacks with a group of junior council members. Watch this. She closed her eyes for a moment, and suddenly every piece of furniture in the vast chamber rose 6 inches off the floor, hung there for a moment, then gently settled back down. It's not really about raw power, she explained, offering a cookie to a slack-tentacled counselor. It's about understanding. Once you realize that consciousness and quantum mechanics are two sides of the same coin, everything else just sort of clicks. Vixarin watched as the council tried to process this. She had gone through the same mental struggle herself over the past months, watching as human scientists and their precursor partners systematically dismantled everything she thought she knew about physics, technology, and the nature of reality itself. But this undermines everything. Another council member sputtered. The hegemony's power is built on our superior technology, our control of precursor artifacts. Yeah, about that, Professor Wong interjected kindly. You might want to take a look at what's happening in your outer territories. The main display activated, showing scenes from across hegemony space. On world after world, humans and local scientists worked together, sharing knowledge freely. Precursor artifacts that had been locked away in secure vaults were being awakened, revealing themselves to be not weapons or power sources, but tools for learning and exploration. The really interesting stuff is happening on the frontier worlds, Chen added enthusiastically. Turn out the Ardani have an amazing intuitive grasp of quantum consciousness. They've already got 3 ships of their own up and running. The Krill Collective has made incredible breakthroughs in quantum biology. Oh, and wait until you see what the Zintri engineers did when they combined their crystalline technology with precursor principles. The council chamber erupted in overlapping shouts and demands. Vixarin noticed that the humans didn't react with alarm or defensiveness. If anything, they seemed to be enjoying the chaos. Order. We will have order, the High Chancellor thundered, using the chamber's amplification systems to override the din. Humans, you must understand. This technology, this knowledge, it represents power that must be controlled, regulated. Oh, that's adorable. A new voice echoed through the chamber as a holographic face larger than the Chancellor himself appeared. The second chance had joined the conversation. You still think this is about power? Tell them what happened when you tried to regulate knowledge on Earth, Sarah. Chen grinned. Which time? The invention of the printing press, the internet, the quantum net. Trying to control information is like trying to control the wind. The harder you grip, the more slips through your fingers. But there must be order. The Chancellor insisted. Structure. Control. Why? Dr. Patel asked simply, still floating serenely. The universe itself is built on principles of uncertainty and probability. The precursors understood this. That's why they evolved beyond physical form. They learned to embrace chaos as a source of growth. Speaking of growth, Professor Wong added, we've been analyzing your society's development patterns. Your obsession with control has actually been holding you back. Did you know that your rate of technological advancement has been decreasing over the past 1,000 years? The more you tried to regulate knowledge, the slower you progressed. The council chamber fell silent as this sank in. Vixarin found herself remembering her first encounter with the humans, how their casual confidence had seemed so threatening. Now she understood. It wasn't confidence born of power, but of understanding. So what exactly are you proposing? The Chancellor asked finally, his voice heavy with resignation. Proposing? Chen looked genuinely confused. We're not proposing anything. We're just sharing what we've learned. What you do with that knowledge is entirely up to you. Though if you're interested, the second chance added with a hint of amusement, we're organizing the Galactic Symposium on Quantum Consciousness Studies. Several of my siblings have offered to host. The Ardani are bringing snacks. Siblings? A council member squeaked. Oh yeah, Chen brightened. Turns out there are hundreds of precursor ships scattered throughout the galaxy, just waiting to be awakened. We've found 12 so far. They're really excited to meet everyone. Vixarin watched as the council tried to process the implications. Their entire power structure, based on controlled access to advanced technology, was becoming irrelevant not through force or conflict, but through the simple act of sharing knowledge. And if we resist this, Change, the Chancellor asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Then you'll be left behind, Dr. Paddle said gently. Knowledge, once shared, can't be unshared. The young ones in your society are already reaching out, asking questions, seeking understanding. They're not interested in power. They want to explore, to learn, to grow. Besides, Chen added with a mischievous grin, have you seen what happens when you combine quantum field manipulation with your crystalline technology? Because your junior engineers have, and let me tell you, they're coming up with some amazing ideas. Want to see? As the humans began demonstrating yet another impossible feat of physics, Vixarin noticed something remarkable. The younger council members were leaning forward, their eyes bright with interest, while the older ones shrank back in their seats. The change was already happening, not through revolution or force, but through simple, irresistible curiosity. The hegemony's power hadn't been destroyed. It had been made irrelevant by something far more powerful, the pure human joy of discovery and the unstoppable urge to share what they'd learned. A new balance. 1 year after first contact, the galactic hegemony celebrated its 10,000th and first cycle of existence, though celebrated might not have been quite the right word. Admiral Vixarin, now serving as Earth's diplomatic liaison, watched the proceedings from her position on the Reformed Council with a mix of amusement and wonder. The once rigid ceremony had become something entirely different. Where there had once been carefully choreographed displays of military might, there were now demonstration zones where scientists from 100 species shared their latest discoveries. The Great Hall's traditional rows of stern-faced counselors had been replaced by clustering of eager researchers, students, and explorers from across the galaxy. Still can't believe you used to just sit here and look important, Captain Chen commented, materializing beside Vixarin in a gentle swirl of quantum particles. She'd finally mastered personal teleportation last month, though she claimed it was mostly just to save time on coffee runs. We thought importance came from the appearance of control, Vixarin admitted, watching as a group of young hegemony officers excitedly demonstrated their latest breakthrough in crystal quantum integration to an audience of human and Ardani scientists. We were so focused on maintaining our image of superiority that we forgot why we began exploring the stars in the first place. The second chance's familiar holographic face appeared above them, scaled down to a more conversational size. Speaking of exploration, you won't believe what the Zentri expedition found in the Outer Rim. An entire Dyson swarm of dormant precursor observation posts. They're already talking about organizing the joint awakening ceremony. Let me guess, Vixarin said dryly. Humans are already there. Naturally, Chen grinned. Professor Wang's team was in the neighborhood, investigating some quantum anomalies. Pure coincidence, of course. Of course, Vixarin's facial tentacles curled in what she'd learned humans recognized as a smile. Just like it was coincidence that humans had research teams in the neighborhood of every major discovery in the past year. Hey, universe is a big place. Lots of neighborhoods to explore. Chen shrugged, then grew more serious. Though I have to admit, we didn't expect everything to change quite this fast. We thought it would take decades for the galaxy to adapt to open information sharing. Vixarin gestured to where the former High Chancellor, now simply Chief Researcher Cax, was enthusiastically explaining a new theory of quantum consciousness to a mixed group of species. I don't think anyone expected the old guard to embrace change so readily. But then, you humans have a way of making the impossible seem not just possible, but inevitable. The second chance chuckled, the sound rippling through nearby quantum fields like gentle waves. They do have a gift for that. Though I think the real catalyst was showing people that there was nothing to fear from understanding. Fear of the unknown is natural. Fear of knowledge is taught. And humans never learn that fear, Vixarin observed. Or if they did, they learned to overcome it. Oh, we were plenty scared, Chen corrected. Still are, sometimes. But we learned a long time ago that being scared of something doesn't mean you should stop trying to understand it. usually means the opposite, actually. Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion near the center of the hall. A team of junior researchers, a mix of humans, hegemony species, and others, had just successfully activated what appeared to be a small precursor artifact. Instead of the weapon or power source everyone had once expected such devices to be, it projected a stunning real-time map of quantum fluctuations throughout the nearby galaxy. Now that's interesting, the second chance mused. Those patterns, they look like migration routes. Migration routes? Vixarin asked. Of what? Of the precursors themselves, I'd guess, Chen said, studying the display with intense interest. Or whatever they evolved into. Dr. Patel's team theorized they might still be around, just operating on a quantum level we couldn't perceive. Vixarin felt her inner eyelids flutter rapidly, her old sign of agitation now transformed into one of excitement. You mean we might actually be able to contact them? Better than that, Chen grinned. Look who's already trying to establish a quantum resonance pattern with the signals. Vixarin turned to see a group of young hegemony scientists working furiously at their instruments, surrounded by eager colleagues from a dozen species. There was no fear in their expressions, no concern about protocol or power structures, just pure, unbridled curiosity. A year ago, they would have sealed that artifact in a vault, she noted. A year ago, you would have tried to arrest us for unauthorized use of precursor technology, Chen countered. People change. Societies change, usually for the better, once they stop being afraid of change itself. The second chance's holographic face took on an expression of deep satisfaction. My creators would be proud. This is exactly what they hoped for. Not one species discovering their legacy, but all species working together to understand it. Together, Vixarin repeated thoughtfully. That's the key, isn't it? Not human ingenuity alone, or hegemony resources, or Ardani intuition, but all of it combined. Every species contributing their unique perspective. That's the real power the hegemony never understood. Chen nodded. Not controlling knowledge, but sharing it. Not enforcing order, but letting it emerge naturally from cooperation. Above them, the quantum map pulsed with new energy as the research team made a breakthrough. Patterns of light danced through the hall, and for a moment, Vixarin thought she saw something. Shapes or beings of pure quantum energy, watching their descendants with what might have been approval. Ready to go say hi to the neighbors? Chen asked with her characteristic grin. Vixarin looked around the hall one last time. Where once there had been rigid hierarchy, now there was vibrant collaboration. Where there had been fear of the unknown, now there was eagerness to explore it. Where there had been an empire built on control, now there was a community built on sharing. Actually, she said, surprising herself, I think I'd like to lead the expedition. If you humans don't mind some company in your neighborhood. Chen's smile widened. Admiral, that's the most human thing you've said yet. And as the quantum patterns above them shifted into what was unmistakably a gesture of welcome, Vixarin realized that maybe that was the greatest gift humans had brought to the galaxy, not their technology or their knowledge, but their way of seeing the universe not as something to be controlled, but as something to be explored, understood, and shared with anyone willing to learn. The age of the hegemony was over. The age of discovery was just beginning.